Hello everyone, welcome to this webinar in which we are going to talk about MBA scholarships. I'll get started in a minute. In the meantime, those of you who have joined, if you can let me know if you can hear me clearly, a quick hi, hello, yes, no in the chat box would be great. Um, in the meantime, I'll very quickly introduce myself. Just give me one sec, get things ready for, yeah, I think we are all set. Okay. Um, so my name is Saqib and I'm going to be your host today. Um, I'm sure some of you have attended my webinars before. We have been doing this series for quite a long time now. I think in the last 3 to 4 weeks, we have done a few webinars on uh, how to choose schools in US, UK. If you're interested in watching those webinars, I would highly recommend, go to YouTube, look at our channel. You'll definitely find all those videos there. I'll share the link too also. So just a very quick introduction. My name is Saqib. I'm the co-founder of GMAT and GREWhiz. And I've taken the GMAT myself. I have a 760 on the GMAT. I know GMAT is mostly associated with test prep, but we do also help people get into top B schools. So we are into admission consulting also, and uh, though we don't we work with a small cohort, but we do make sure that we give our best and help them get into the top 10, top 15 B schools. So that's a bit about me. Let's get into the main topic today, which is about scholarships. So the first thing which I'm going to talk about is how do AdComs decide, whom to give scholarship? What are the criteria do they consider when they're taking a call whether this person deserves a scholarship or not? Okay, and while I'm talking about that, I'm going to focus on four strategies, which you can definitely which can definitely help you boost your scholarships. MBA is expensive, right? So you end up paying if you don't get any scholarship, and if you're doing a 2-year program, you end up paying close to 200 250K, which is a lot. So I'm pretty sure a lot of you would be interested in getting a scholarship. In fact, do let me know how many of you are you know what's your take on this? And I want this to be an interactive session, guys. So, just let me know your thoughts. I know a scholarship is something which everybody would want, but is there anyone out here who's like, hey, I just need to get into a top school, B school, even if I don't get a scholarship, that's fine. Or, if you're looking at a scholarship, are you looking at full rides, full scholarship? Are you okay with the 50%? What is it? Because I talk to a lot of students and they're like, hey, I want to do go to a B school, but I want to go to a place where I can definitely get, at least a 50% scholarship or something like that. I don't want to pay the full sticker price. So let me know if you fall in that category. Um, um, what kind of schools are you looking for? In which schools are you looking for scholarships? If you want, you can share those also, and I can let you know a little bit, whether you stand a chance or how difficult or easy it is. So I'll talk about the four strategies, and I'll also talk about some decent trends. Since last year, this year, as far as scholarships are concerned, how easy is it? How difficult is it? What kind of schools offer more scholarship? Those kind of aspects is something that I am definitely going to cover in this session. Okay. I don't see anything on the chat box yet, so I'm assuming so far it's all clear. Once again, do keep on giving your inputs. Please keep on asking questions. If you have any, I'll be more than happy to answer them. So let's start off by what AdComs look at. Okay. Now, the first which I'm going to say is pretty obvious, I know, and but I think it does make sense that I do mention it. That GMAT score does play a decent amount of role on your, on whether you would get scholarship or not. However, I would add an asterisk here, something like that. What I mean by that, this is not an absolute thing that a definite GMAT score, high GMAT score, would definitely get you a scholarship. That's not the case. And it's also not the case that if you have a low GMAT score, then you would not get a scholarship. I'm going to talk about GMAT score a bit in detail, but this is definitely one factor which can, work for you if you definitely have a higher score. How it can work in your favor is something which I'm definitely gonna touch upon. Okay. But don't worry if anyone out here, if you don't have a very high GMAT score, if you're in somewhere in the range of 710, 720, or if you're targeting something like that, and if you're thinking, can I get a scholarship or not? Well, you can definitely get a scholarship. We're going to talk about, what are the things that you can look at to get some. Uh, Second thing, obviously, is profile. I've been talking about this in the last 3 webinars that we have been doing in the last 3 to 4 weeks, where I've already told you that, for an admit, a profile does matter, right? But apart from that, B schools do look for try to create a decent amount of diversity in the batch, right? So when you're evaluating your profile, try and see from that perspective also. Adcoms do look at and see, does this, does this candidate bring something to the table? What is it? What is different about this candidate? Is this candidate, somebody who is an entrepreneur, has experienced, bought and sold a startup, or even, even if they have failed, is there some learning that he can, candidate can bring into the in the classes? Is this candidate has a let's say the candidate could have a very rich experience in, say, investment banking or, PVC field, and they can add something to the discussion in the B school. Do they have something really different also? Somebody who might have, taken a break, explored the world, might have rich experience about working with diverse people. So those kind of things, experiences, kind of profile. When I say profile, don't always think in terms of job profile. It's everything. They look at candidates who are well-rounded. So each and every aspect of your profile could affect your admit as well as the scholarship that you would get. Okay. So third aspect is alignment also. So what do I mean by alignment is, see, when you apply to a B school, you have to kind of try and choose B schools which align with the goal that you have, right? So for example, if you are looking at, say, for example, entrepreneurship, right? It would make sense that if you target a school like, say, Babson, which is the number one B school in entrepreneurship, if you want to target that and if you're looking for scholarships, would make sense to apply it. I'm not saying that M7s are not, definitely very solid programs in M7 if you're targeting entrepreneurship, but if you're targeting that, apply to schools which have strong, either are known for it like Babson, or they have a strong entrepreneurship programs. Like for example, Kellogg has a very strong programs. They have Zell Fellows. They have their own labs. Obviously, HSW, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton definitely has it. MIT is very very focused on entrepreneurship. But that's just one aspect, right? If you there are other things also. So, for example, if you want to go into finance, what kind of schools would you look for? Stern, Columbia, schools that make sense, right? You would not want to go to a school which doesn't have a lot of so emphasis on, say, IB, if that's something they are targeting. So while choosing schools also, it's your job to make sure that there's alignment. But when AdComs look at your profile, they also look at, hey, what's your short-term, long-term goal, and does it make sense? Will I be able to, help the candidate get that or not? Okay. If they realize that the values and the goals that you have, they do not match, or they are not a right fit with the school that you have applied to, then there's a very good chance that you might not get an admit, or even if they decide to give you a chance, scholarship opportunities would definitely be very low. Okay. The last aspect, I've kept it as last because there's something which is not in your control, right? If your nationality is your nationality, whichever it is, but it does play a little bit of a role, because and I have talked about this again in previous webinars, that if say for example, if you're an Asian, there's a huge cohort, a lot of people applying from it, so it's going to be very very competitive for you to get a scholarship, unless and until you kind of check all these boxes. Then maybe they'll say, okay, hey, you have all three, let's ignore the nationality for a moment and give it. If you're from places like, say, for example, Africa and all, where not a lot of candidates apply and it's not that really competitive also, then there's a very good chance that they would want you from there, and they might be willing to provide you scholarships so that you join that school. So region does play a role in it, but the reason I've kept it at last is because that's something that is not in your control and you cannot do a lot about it. And it's not like AdComs reject somebody just based on their nationality. Okay, so these are four things. I'm going to talk about how you can use certain strategies to kind of, you know, improve on these aspects and maximize your chances as far as scholarships are concerned. Okay. Once again, if you have any questions, guys, please feel free to ask at this point of time. Any doubts regarding GMAT score or profile or alignment or nationality, just shoot your questions in the chat box. Um, so now let's talk about a bit of the strategy, right? I did mention out here GMAT score. Now, one easy way is obviously getting a high GMAT score. Uh, high GMAT score, basically what it does is when there are a lot of B schools who are, nowadays looking to improve their GMAT average also. So there's kind of Flagler, Darden, they are all, I'm just naming one or two. There are obviously other schools also which focus on high GMAT score. But like, for example, Stern also does look at a high GMAT score, especially if you're from, Asia, they would, or India, they would want a high GMAT score as possible because they would want to improve their GMAT batch average. So if they see somebody with which who has a high GMAT score, which can help them improve their high GMAT average, because that would help them improve their US rankings, then they would definitely want to take you. Again, I'm adding this as a disclaimer here. Don't look at all these strategies in isolation. Okay. Keep everything in mind. There are four things that I've talked about, right? Let's bar the last one, nationality. The three things definitely there. So keep all these three things in mind. Don't just think that you have a 760, then you will definitely get a, or a 750, you'll definitely get a scholarship. But does it increase your chance? Definitely. It will definitely increase your chance to either get a very high scholarship or maybe a full scholarship also. And I have two examples which I wanted to talk about. One is, I wanted to talk about Ahmad, who had a GMAT 760, a decent profile. Okay, I'm not saying a very wow profile. It's not even a very low profile, a weak profile. The profile, he was an engineer. He's an engineer, has done decent amount of work uh, in a PSU, doing pretty well. But it's not that the thing that worked in his favor was that he was not from an IT background as far as profile is concerned. But apart from that, it was the factor, the fact that the profile obviously played some role in it, but his GMAT score definitely helped him get full scholarship from UNC and 110K from Emory, which is like almost more than 50% scholarship from Emory, right? Another case would be, you can look at G1, had a 760 and ended up getting a 125K scholarship from Stern. And I did mention Stern does look for high GMAT score. G1 wanted to be in finance also. So as far as alignment and profile is concerned, both these things were in his favor. Uh, in fact, all these things: profile, alignment, high GMAT score. So if you realize that you have a decent amount of alignment with the school that you're looking at, um, then, and if you're really really interested in getting a scholarship, this is like the easiest path to get a scholarship. Get a high GMAT score, you'll maximize your chance a lot to get it. Okay. Now, I did mention that don't worry if you don't have a high GMAT score, because there are other ways also in which you can ensure a scholarship, and I'm going to talk about them in the next one. So think of it in this way: if you, let's say for example, you have a decent GMAT score, let's say a 720, 740, something along those range, how can you maximize your chances of getting a high scholarship? Well, one way to do it is you choose your schools a little carefully. Okay, look at schools which provide very strong alignment with what you really want to do, and they would appreciate the kind of profile that you have. Okay, so if you have a profile which does stand out from the rest, then that can definitely help you out. Or if you have a profile which is totally aligned with what the school is, wants, then that can definitely help also. Like for example, Jeevan could have converted Stern also with a 740. I'm pretty sure the scholarship amount might have been a little low, but then Stern, finance, everything was aligned, right? So that plays a huge role in that. So in your case also, you can ask yourself, okay, what kind of school am I looking at? And I have a 700. What do I do? Which schools would help me achieve my goal? Um, that's number one. The second thing is you need to talk about, why do you want to go to that school, and you need to have really powerful essays. You need to kind of, because that's the only way, and that's the only time when you're interacting with the AdComs, and they're carefully reviewing your, essays. So you have to really make sure that you write really powerful essays and tell them why despite having a low GMAT score, or maybe even being from a huge cohort, why should they still select you? What is it that makes you stand out? Okay. Now, if this seems like, just a bunch of motivation, that's not the case. I'm also going to show you a few cases where, we had clients who did not have a high GMAT score, but they had really, really good profiles. And one of the cases which I want to talk about is Barkavi. In fact, I would definitely recommend that you look at her success story. I'm just sharing that link on in the chat box. And I'm just showing it up here. Okay, so definitely look at her success story. Now look at the GMAT score, the 700. Now most people with the 700 would have kind of given up and said, I don't think I would be able to get a NCED. So let me go and look at schools which might help me get admit with a 700. Especially being an Indian Asian, 700 is not a really great score, right? And a lot of you might even discourage for you not to apply. But what happened in case of Bhargavi is that we kind of looked at her profile, uh, and and she had a very very solid profile. She has been involved in her own business. She had some consulting background also, so very very strong profile and a very solid story and a solid reason behind doing an MBA. Okay, and she had very clear goals and plans on how to improve. She wants to grow her own business, so those things kind of aligned, and it was very clear to us that we can write very powerful essays for her, and therefore it does make sense to take a shot at INSEAD. She converted in US also, by the way, but obviously once she converted INSEAD, it was a no brainer to go to INSEAD. And in fact, notice with the 700, if you get INSEAD, that's like a dream come true, I would say, for a lot of people. But apart from that, also even ended up getting a merit scholarship of 18,000 euros. Now, this might not seem a lot, but considering the fact that European MBAs are a little cheaper than MBAs in USA, I think $18,000 is still very very decent, and still better than zero, right? So if your score is low, don't worry about it. And I want to just give one more case in which I want to talk about Alvi. I didn't have a photo for her yet, so I just thought I'll talk about her. In her case, when we were choosing schools, we tried and look. She's from the energy sector, which is again a very niche area, right? And it is booming in US a lot. So she was it for her, it was very clear that she wanted to work in continue working in that sector only. Her goals again aligned really well, and she had a very solid profile. Now with a 700, she could have again tried her luck at Cornell, Tepper, or maybe even gone schools which are below T30. But what we did was we kind of focused on schools which are which have either major energy sector, or the location, like Texas is a location which can definitely help her if she wants to go into energy. And we helped her apply in McCombs, we helped her apply in Rice Jones, these schools, and we took a shot at that because we knew that even if it's not a T15 school, she'll be going to a school which is very very aligned to what she wants to do. So her chances of thriving in that school is very high despite not having a high GMAT score. And look at what happened. She ended up getting a convert, and the most important thing is she ended up getting a scholarship of 80,000 euro dollars, right? With the 700 only. A lot of people might say, okay, with the 700, if I get a convert, I'll be more than happy, right? So what's the takeaway from here? The takeaway here is that strategy one obviously helps, which is getting a high GMAT score. But let's just say if strategy one is out of picture for you, you can still look at strategy two. Look at your profile very closely. Talk to us if you want to. We can definitely help you out with this, and figure out which schools can help you maximize your returns in terms of your short-term and long-term goal. I know it. Everybody wants to go to a T10, T15B school. I'm not discouraging you from that, but it is quite possible that there could be a school in a T20 or a T25 or maybe in a T30 that can help you achieve the goal that you're looking for. Okay, and so don't just blindly look at T15 and take a call. Okay, I would like to go there. Or if I have a 700, I don't stand a chance in a school that could really help me out. So with this, I would say if you're still confused, you're not sure where you should apply, where you shouldn't, we do offer profile evaluation, guys. I'm sharing my Calendly link. These profile evaluations are they're not free, by the way, because we spend a lot of time in doing these profile evaluations, where we tell you, what schools can you apply to, how can you improve your profile, what kind of GMAT score you should target, and we try to give you a very clear cut path on what are the things that you need to do to be able to achieve your a dream B school. or whether the schools that you're targeting would even make sense or not. So if you're interested in getting your profile validated and figuring out what would whether it would make sense or not, I would recommend, I've shared the Stripe link. It's $25. You can make a payment of $25, and you get a 30-minute call with me, which you can use this Calendly link. So book a call once you make the payment, and we can have a 30-minute discussion on how can you maximize your chances of getting an admit, and how can we maximize your chances of getting a scholarship. Now, and this is really really important, guys. You need to understand, if you target the right B schools, you can end up getting a huge scholarship. So I would definitely recommend trying this out, getting a profile evaluated really well. I can see a question in the chat box. Will a good GRE score also fetch scholarship? That's a very good question, Nathan. Thank you for bringing this up. I know I've been talking about GMAT, but schools which take GRE also, in those cases also strategy one would definitely work. Okay, so when I'm talking about strategy one, all I meant to say was target a high score. It could be a GMAT score, it could be a GRE score. Okay, so make sense to make sure that uh, get as high score as possible. Like if you're looking at GRE, maybe a 330 plus would make sense if you want to. That could definitely help you out. And again, if you have a lower score, we can talk about what that score can help you get. Uh, yes, Harry, she was a student. She worked with us on GMAT also, and for her admission consulting for both these, she took both our services. Okay. Now, I just want to show you, I know this is not the main agenda, but I just want to highlight, take a minute or two to just tell you, when you're writing essays, I talked about powerful essays. Take a lot of time in understanding the crux of the essay. I've taken a Kellogg question example. I've been talking about a lot of different V schools. I thought, let me take Kellogg and talk about it. When you're reading a question now, we can take 10 seconds to read it, or let me read it with you, right? So here the question is, Kellogg's purpose is to educate, equip, and inspire brave readers who create lasting value. And I provided a recent example where you have demonstrated leadership and created value. What challenges did you face and what did you learn? Now, whenever somebody reads this question, and I've been working with Manish, I've worked with a lot of students with Kellogg and INSEAD. And I've seen that when they are writing answers, though they did a really good job, and they converted those schools. But in general, I've seen when the people writing their answers, they always try and think about, a story that needs to always be a success, or uh, I have to demonstrate leadership, I have to do really well, and those kind of things. I have to be really brave, and they try to write in a very flowery language, uh, and they forget to focus on the key aspect that the B school is looking for. Now, understand, E school have their own trait. Okay, they have their they every school, though there are some common overlapping traits, right? Everybody wants people who are creative and everything. But like, for example, Kellogg prefers, leaders. They want people who are very collaborative, who can take everybody, and make sure that they can lead them really well, or who can work with diverse people. Now, these are things that you need to understand about the school really well. So to understand what kind of answers might they be looking for, or what kind of qualities are they looking for. Okay. And when you're writing the answers, you also need to focus on keywords really, really well. Like, when I'm writing a story, would any success story work where I was a leader? You can show success, but does that success have a lasting value? You can show a project where you did well and you had a temporary, result out of it, but would that work? It won't. So you need to talk about, say, a project where something got implemented and has been in use for a long time. Just one example, and it doesn't really need to be from the professional space. Also, it could be from the personal space also. Okay, so you can talk something in which, say, for example, maybe you'll be working as in a social group, or an NGO, and where you might have demonstrated leadership and created value for people, created impact. So those kind of examples are also pretty much possible. And it is not necessary also that you have to always talk about successes. It is quite possible that you might have led, might have made some mistake out, and the result might have not been that fruitful, but there could be some learning for everybody that could have created value for them. Okay, you have to focus on words like recent examples. So when you're writing answers, focus on these small things. Can I write an example which is 5 years back, or do I need to look for something which is 1 year, 1 or 2 year back? So when you're writing creating these essays, focus on keywords, focus on what that school is looking for. I've taken Kellogg as an example, but any school, you have to show that alignment, and the best way to show that alignment is to understand what values do they care. And then when you're writing the essays, try and focus on these keywords and figure out what exactly are they looking for. Okay. Don't just read it at a high level and write your answers. And once again, we can help you with these processes also if you're facing a challenge in this and want our inputs on it. So that's about it. So basically, what we usually do is for these essays, we kind of break down, how do you need to write these answers? We tell you so we basically use something which is known as a STAR approach, where we talk about the situation a bit, the task, the action involved, the results, and the reflection you're learning from it, right? So we have to create some kind of a structure while writing these answers. Now, do we have to always follow STAR approach? Well, to be on the safer side, you can. But if you want to write in a form of a story, which doesn't fully follow it, but it has all the component in the right order, and if, for example, ST gets mixed a little bit here and there, it's not a problem. But it should have all the important components that we are looking for. Okay, especially if you're talking about leadership, if you're talking about lasting value, are those aspects getting covered or not in the answers is something that you have to focus a lot on. These are the two strategies that I've talked about. Now let's talk about strategy number 3. And again, this is a little bit in your control, a little bit not. But the third strategy is to try and see if you can apply as early as possible. Round 1, round 2 is something that we usually prefer. Now, post that, because see, in each round they have a certain amount of funds, right, that they would want to allocate. Now, by the time it comes to round 3, and just I would want to mention one thing out here is that US and Europe work a little differently, by the way. Uh, Now, in most of the USB schools, you have either round 1 and round 2, and usually a round 3. Some of them have an early admit, but mostly round 1, round 2. So that means you have to apply by the Jan round, which is usually Jan 10th, Jan 5th. These are the usual deadlines. A lot of UMB schools may end up having round 3 rounds by the time you come to Jan. So when I say round 2, I mean round 2 of US. If you're looking at Europe, basically round 3. Or if this seems confusing, the best way to understand is, hey, apply by Jan round. That's, I think, would be the easiest way to understand that you need to apply it during that time. Now, having said that, keep in mind some years vary a little bit. Like this year was an exception. There were a lot of layoffs, so a lot of B schools opened a few more rounds. In Feb also, and which was like somewhere between round 2 and round 3. So round 1, round 2, round 3, and there was another round which was inserted here, 2.5, whatever you want to call it. So this would also work, but the chances, as you can understand, would go down. Now, these kind of rounds are mostly for people, hey, if you've been laid off, you can come, we have openings and you can join. But these openings are mostly, these rounds are usually open for people to get an intake, not in terms of getting a scholarship. If you're lucky, you might get it, but the best would be to focus on the January round. Also, keep in mind a lot of B schools, like for example, HEC Paris has rolling admissions. Now, in schools like that, try to apply as quickly as possible. Like in HEC, you can apply every month, right? So don't just delay it thinking, hey, I have time till Jan, unless and until that's your backup school. That's a different thing at all. But if it's like a priority, that's like a dream school. I know some people want to go to marketing, want to go to Paris. So if that is your case, make sure that once you have your, if strategy 1 and 2 are in place, based on that, if you have selected HEC Paris as a school that you want to go to, then don't delay. Apply it as quickly as possible, because the funds would keep on getting decreased. Now, there's not a lot of difference between round 1 and round 2 also. Surprisingly, nobody asked me this question, but I just want to, just tell you now only, because people do ask me, what if if my GMAT is not done or GRE is not done by round 1? Should I, will I have enough chances in round 2? You'll definitely have chances, guys. Okay, so don't worry about that aspect at all. Uh, I've seen students make a mistake, candidates making a mistake where they want to apply in round 1 and they push the GMAT GRE really, really quickly and end up messing it up and then delaying the whole GMAT GRE process again. Don't do that. understand if strategy 1 is in place, then strategy 2 and 3 becomes really easy. So make sure that you give your GMAT GRE properly. If you feel that round 1 would be too early for you, you might not have the kind of score that you're looking for, go for round 3, go for round 2, not a problem. And round 3 for Europe, if basically the Jan round, that definitely is not an issue. Okay. If you have any questions, guys, please feel free to ask at this point of time. I don't see anything in the chat box, so I'm moving ahead. But again, feel free to ask. This is an aspect which is very interesting, which is negotiate, guys. Let's say, for example, you've applied to be a B school, and you ended up, having two offers. And this time, I've talked to a lot of students. Like I was talking about Ahmad, right? Ahmad had a UNC full scholarship. He, in fact, had an admit from Yale also, by the way. So you can use that. In fact, there's one more case which I want to talk about, which is there in the slide, is if you have admits from two schools, and let's just say one of them has given a scholarship, the other one hasn't, then you can definitely try and see, write to the school the other school and see if they would be willing to give you a scholarship. Now understand this. Let's say, for example, you have an admit from say Booth, and you have an admit from say MECOMs. Obviously, they are not comparable schools, right? So you have to look at schools which are in close proximity also, and you have to look at schools which are close in ranking also for them to entertain that request. Like for example, I know a lot of candidates who get admit from Kellogg and Booth both, right? Both of them in Chicago. A lot of people want to, they have scholarships from say Kellogg, they want to go to Booth, they have admissions scholarships from Booth, they want to go to Kellogg. So in such cases, you can definitely, if you're really interested in that school, obviously you'll have to and explain why do you really want to go to that school, and why, if say for example you've got an admit from Booth and you want to go to Kellogg, why should Kellogg offer you a scholarship? Some cases you might be lucky, they might just want they might themselves want you and take you, but writing an essay and explaining it to them why there's a lot of alignment to that school would definitely would make sense. Similarly, Columbia Stern, they do fight a lot for finance students, right? Same place, same close proximity. So there's a lot of competition between these two. So if you have scholarship competing offers, definitely make sure that you can definitely negotiate and see if you can get a better offer. One example which I want to take was of Chinmay. She wanted to work in product. Uh, her success story would be coming out soon. Yeah, again, she had a score of 690, but ended up getting offers from both Foster's and Georgia Tech, Scheller. Now, Georgia Tech initially offered her a very good scholarship. I think it was close to 50%, and Foster did not offer her a lot of scholarship. It was lesser than Georgia Tech. So what we did was, we kind of I kind of decided that let's write to Foster's and tell them why you really want to go to Foster's. Okay. And there was a lot of alignment, right, between in a profile, in what she wanted to do. Both these schools wanted her. So she wrote an essay to Foster's. And told Foster's why she wants to consider Foster and why they should, at least try and match it, because she really wants to go there. And they actually ended up giving her, the scholarship. They matched it. In fact, what I remember is the total amount is slightly more than what she's getting from Georgia Tech. So don't just think, hey, I've got a scholarship from Georgia Tech, which is more than Foster, so let me just go to Georgia Tech. Unless if that's your dream school, definitely go to Georgia Tech. But I'm just saying that if, say, for example, you want to go to Foster's, or the example that I gave here about Kellogg, Booth, or Chicago Stern, and I've seen a few cases where people had admits from Kellogg, Yale also, and these kind of things. So in such cases, definitely talk, negotiate, write them, an essay, tell them why exactly do you believe that that particular school should match that scholarship that you have from the other school. Okay, this does happen, and there's nothing to be worried about. I can see a question out here. What about Indian B school scholarship? Okay, that's a good question. I've been focusing a lot on US and Europe. So ISB does offer scholarship. There's no issue at all as far as ISBs are concerned. IMs also offer, but not a lot. Keep in mind, I haven't seen a lot of full scholarships or um, 50% scholarships. In fact, that's a good question, because what I would want to also cater to the fact is that the scholarship amount also varies based on region wise. Okay, like for example, if you look at you, in fact, this is something that I wanted to talk later on, but let me just cover it here only. If I look at let's call it this way. Okay, let's look at this way. So if I look at the maximum amount of scholarship opportunities would be in US. Okay, where getting 100% scholarship, 50% scholarship, is it's pretty easy. They have a very deep scholarship amount set apart for giving scholarships. So you can definitely expect a lot of full rides, a lot of 50-25% scholarships in US. In European schools, you can definitely expect scholarship, but the amount might not be that high, and the number of people who get full rides or a 50% scholarship is pretty limited. If you have a decent profile and if they really want you, then you can expect a 25% scholarship or a 10 euro scholarship or 10,000 euro scholarship. These kind of scholarships are possible. These are something I've seen more frequently in Europe. 10K, 15K, 20K type scholarships are pretty easy to get there, but full rides and 50% scholarship might not that be easy. Same goes for India, by the way. uh, the scholarships are there, it's not that they are not, but I would say most of them are capped at 20-25%. Don't expect a lot of scholarship. Don't think that, hey, if I was 760 and applied to ISB, I would definitely end up getting a full ride. Not gonna happen. May happen, but chances are very less, let me put it this way. So probability wise, highest probability here, then these two have almost the equal amount of priorities, how I would put it. Okay, I hope that answers your query. I hope this was helpful for everybody. I can see a question. Hi, Sakib, I'm 42 from defense with good, blah, blah, blah. I'm targeting 713 GMAT and applying for a near MBA. So do I stand a chance if I apply for scholarship? Shiv, that's a good question. See, as far as chances are concerned, again, these four factors that I've mentioned, right? You'll have to look at where. So if you get a 730, the strategy one is almost in place. It's a decent score. It's a good score, I would say. 730 is a good score. Now you have to look at strategy two. When you're applying to one Y programs, what kind of schools are you looking for? Are you looking at, say, for example, Kellogg? Are you looking at INSEAD? Are you looking at, LBS? LBS is a 15-month program, by the way. Are you looking at Warwick? What kind of one Y programs are you looking for? Are you looking at ISB? So, like for example, I know that one Y programs of Kellogg do not have a lot of scholarships options, very, very limited. But Kellogg 2Y has a lot of scholarship options, right? INSEAD does give scholarships, but it falls under the U category, right? So the scholarship would be slightly on the lower end. You may end up getting some scholarship, but it's not going to be a 50% or a 100% scholarship. So to answer your question, yes, you can. If strategy one, two is fine. Strategy three, obviously, if you're applying early, your chances would definitely increase. But in your case, since your age is on the higher side, I would definitely recommend working on strategy two a lot. Okay, well, because you would have a very different kind of work experience, so that's going to work in your favor really well. So if you can write answers which really talk about why you want to do it, and if you can convince them your story is totally different and you can add value, which you definitely can, then they would definitely want to take you, and there is a very decent chance that they would want to give you a scholarship also, because they would want people from diverse experience, as I mentioned before. Okay, I hope, Shiv, that answers your query. uh, I would also like to mention a fact that in a lot of B schools, USB schools especially, you would get a scholarship directly only. You might not have to do anything about it. They themselves decide where do you want to, what kind of scholarship would you fit in. But there are a lot of special scholarships also. I've mentioned a few here. Please keep in mind that you should definitely go and explore these websites and try and look for scholarships which might fall in your category, which might be aligned with you. Most of these B schools have special scholarship on entrepreneurship. Most of these schools have scholarships on, for women in business. A lot of schools have, diversity scholarships also. If you're from a different region, as I mentioned, if you're from Africa or a different place, Latinx, they do have different kind of scholarships and that. They have scholarships, I mentioned in the EU UK session that a lot of people focus on energy, or a lot of people focus on social entrepreneurship. So these kind of scholarships are available in these kind of schools. So definitely go and look at it. There are veteran scholarships also, by the way, in NYU. So like for example, just to give you one example out here, as I said, most of the places you will get automatically be the school would decide in which scholarship should they give you scholarships. But in case of INSEAD, say for example, once you get an interview call and everything, you have they would ask you to pick out of these options one of them and write an answer on it, a scholarship essay, and tell them why do you think you would be a good fit for that particular scholarship. Okay, so definitely leverage that, because there's a very good chance that you can end up getting scholarships, or there might be a scholarship which might be completely aligned to you. Like in one example which I want to give here is of Shrinkla. Notice again her GMAT score was 630, not a very high GMAT score, but she had a very perfect alignment with entrepreneurship. I again talked about her. If you look at the UK session, you would definitely find a video where I've talked about her profile and everything. Since she had a great alignment, GMAT score did play a role, but not a lot. We worked a lot on strategy too, and ensured that she ends up getting a scholarship from Babson. Okay, so uh, the few more things, as I told you about recent trends, that understand that most of these B schools, especially in US, know the dollar value is up a lot, and MB schools are getting expensive. So they do understand that. So they are also trying to ensure that they give you as much scholarship as possible. Like NYU Stern does give scholarship, though it does. In most of the cases, it does demand a high GMAT score. In fact, I remember their average is close to 730, if I remember correctly. But they would end up giving you a good scholarship if you are able to, have, say, the strategy one, strategy two works well, especially strategy one. So these are schools, Columbia, NYU. They definitely do give a lot of scholarships. One more thing which I would want to mention here is that there are some full ride friendly schools where they are totally okay giving you, 100% scholarship or 50% or 70%, those kind of scholarships. Like UNC, as I mentioned, Ahmed got a full ride from here, right? Babson is very, very famous for giving scholarships. If they really like you, they would end up giving you a 50-60% scholarship really, really easily. Um, so definitely make sure that you look at schools. If getting a full ride is something which is very important for you, then you should definitely figure out schools which are full ride friendly, like 100% scholarship or a 50% scholarship. Definitely target those. In fact, Almas also is another candidate. She didn't work with, she was a student for GMAT. She applied on her own, ended up getting a UNC scholar, in UNC Ken Flagler. She had just a 717 is what I remember. But again, profile alignment was very good. She was from Kazakhstan, so nationality played a huge role. Big four. So profile wise, also pretty strong profile. She was working in Australia, so and UNC ended up giving her full ride. In fact, even Duke Fuqua, in fact, if I remember correctly, ended up giving her a decent amount of scholarship. So. Through this discussion, I hope you understand that the strategy two does play a huge role if strategy one doesn't work in your favor. One thing which I would want to mention is that, especially for EU UK, is that they do have a lot of scholarships based on your GMAT score. So for ISEG, ESMT, they do have different caps. Like for example, if your score is between 600 to 700, what kind of this is the amount of scholarship that they'll give you, 700 to 750, and the amount of scholarship that they can give you. So if you have a high GMAT score, and if you're again looking for schools which can give you scholarships based on GMAT, definitely look at these schools. In fact, I would also like to mention schools like WHU, Mannheim is not mentioned here. Mannheim, these kind of schools, what they do is they have scholarships based on when you apply. So let's say, for example, if you're applying in round one, they might give you a 3,000 euro scholarship. If you apply in round two, they might end up giving you a 2,000 euro scholarship. And I think, not I think, I definitely remember I mentioned that German schools are pretty um, cost friendly. You can get your MBA done in 30-40 lakhs only. So I know 3,000 for the 2,000 might not seem a lot, but if the whole MBA cost is, just 30-40,000, then from that perspective, I still think that's a decent amount of, that's like getting this is like a free money, right? You just need to apply within that deadline and you would have that scholarship. So definitely look at these kind of options also, which are mostly available in EU UK. uh, in US, you get waivers if you apply early, so you might get an application fee waiver. Those kind of waivers are available, but these are slightly different. Those are like getting $100, $200 waivers. These are like more tuned 4,000, 2,000, 3,000 euro, which is, I think, is a decent amount. If you have a GMAT score, if you are, if you have zeroed down based on your strategy two that you really want to go to these schools, apply. applying round one, round two, get that scholarship. That's like free. And definitely, as I mentioned, the schools like NCR, DGC, LBS, they GMAT score definitely plays a huge role. But as I gave you the case of Barkavi, and I made you understand that if you have a very very good profile, or a decent profile also, which where you can use to create a very solid story, then you can definitely expect a scholarship in those cases also. And these schools have a very they have deep pockets. They would love to give you a scholarship if they feel that you would be the right fit for these schools. One thing which I would like to mention is a special case out here of Shefali. Now this is just a list of success stories, guys. I just wanted to show you that you have people with a high GMAT score. In fact, Lokesh also had a GMAT 760, ended up getting a good scholarship. Shushman 760 ended up getting a scholarship. Ahmad again, 760 ended up getting a good scholarship. So strategy one does play a huge role, but we have a lot of cases. I said Chinmay 690, Alfie 700, Shrinkla 630. So these are cases also where you, even if you don't have a very high score, you can definitely get scholarships. The case which I want to mention about is Shifali out here. Why I want to focus on her case a little bit is because in her case she applied without a GMAT score. Okay. Now you don't see that a lot, right? Um, in her case, strategy one wasn't even there. What she had was strategy two. In fact, what she did was she used strategy two, and something which I would say, something which I did not mention before is another strategy is a very, very important strategy is, which is kind of a subsection of strategy two, is she networked a lot. So what I mean by that is, she applied with GMAT score. She got waitlisted in Duke Fuqua, which I understand, without a GMAT score, applying to a T10, T12 B school and getting waitlisted is a huge thing. She applied to Owen also. She got waitlisted, but she did not give up hope. She converted Babson, but she kept on. She wanted to go to Uven again. She had a lot of alignment. She talked to the AdCom. She talked to the placement team. She ended up networking with a lot of students. Got some more recommendations. In fact, she did everything and that is why I want to talk about this, because networking, talking to AdComs, is something which people do at the very last moment. I would recommend that if you have zeroed down on the kind of schools that you want to go to, this is the right time. In fact, as soon as you decide that these are schools you want to go to, I would say go and subscribe to the B school, go to the website, figure out what kind of webinars do they do, figure out whom you can talk to, who's the student body who is actually listening with these people who are applying, get in touch with them, understand your fit, talk to them how, and understand why you should select that school. What is it that makes you passionate about that school? Those things can definitely help you get an admit also. Okay, or a scholarship, both. In fact, she ended up getting the scholarship amount wasn't a lot, but again, no GMAT score, getting an admit, getting a 10K scholarship. And what did she do differently than most of these students is she networked a lot. She did this thing really, really well. In fact, I didn't even have to push her. She herself took that initiative, did it, and you know ended up getting an admit. So just to summarize, guys, again, no brainer, get a GMAT score if you can hire. If not, figure out the schools. Look at schools which could be a right fit. Like I said, Alfie had a right fit, went to a D school which would make sense for her. G1 went to a school which made sense, Finn, right? So figure out what school would make sense, right? Very strong essays, a very strong story. And again, if you want our help, do take it. If you want to understand which schools you should go to, I'm again sharing highlighting the links. It's there in the chat box. Get your profile evaluated. Let us tell you, what schools would make sense for you, what kind of scores would make sense for you, which could help you get a scholarship. Let's talk about that and figure that out, and then apply as early as possible. And if you end up getting competing offers, do negotiate with the school where you really want to go. And even if you are, if you're getting waitlisted, or if you're getting an admit, you really want to go there, do network a lot. If they realize and understand that you really want to go to that school, then they would be willing to give you that scholarship amount, even however small that might be. Everything counts, right? So guys, that's it from my end. If you have any questions, uh, please feel free to ask. Um, I'm sharing the the information on the screen. If you want to write to us, the email ID is support@gmatwiz.com. In fact, I'm sharing my own email ID also. Just give me one sec. If you want to talk to us, you can write to me at this email ID. And by the way, if you have liked this video, I would, if you enjoyed it, if you found this informative, I would request you to, kindly like this video so that it reaches people who might be interested in watching this and understanding this. Um, and if you want to talk to me, I've shared my email ID. Just write to me, and I'll be more than happy to help. The calendar link is also there in the chat box and on the screen. Feel free to book a call with me. Okay. So that's it from my end, guys. In fact, I just give me one sec. Yes, I'm also sharing the link of our next webinar. I think that's gonna be really important one. Uh, Definitely, attend this one, because in this webinar I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give you tips on round one. What are the factors that you need to consider while you're applying to round one, and how you should go about doing it. So this is something that could be really important for you. I think I mentioned the webinar that people do get confused whether they should apply in round one or round two, and how should they decide that. So I'm going to again make it very objective. I'll help you figure out what are the factors that you should definitely consider while taking a call, whether you should apply in round one or round two. Okay. Okay, guys. So that's it from my end. I'm just ending the webinar. Have a great day, guys. Bye.